Robert Plank Show, episode 331. High Status. Unlock your ultimate destiny, charisma, rapport, success, and more with Jason Capital. Hey everyone, and welcome back to the show. We're talking right now with Mr. Jason Capital, and Jason is the founder and chairman of Capital Research International, and for 11 years he has served as a coach and consultant to Fortune 500 executives, professional athletes, Navy SEALs, best-selling authors, and Hollywood luminaries. He has been recognized as a top 100 entrepreneur by President Barack Obama. So Jason, welcome to the show.
Thank you, man. Great to be here, hanging out with you.
It's great to be hanging out with you too. And so, first off, sort of like a weird personal question, but Jason Capital, is that your real name or is that an alias? And keep in mind that you're free to not answer to sort of keep the mystery alive.
I will not plead the fifth on this one. One of my highest values in life is truth. I really think people BS a lot, and I'm very be completely upfront and honest about everything. So 100%, that is not my real name. The short version of that story behind it is when I was 20 years old, I was living in a dorm room at Michigan State University, and I started my first website and started making a lot of money really quickly. And that was under my real name. And at 23, I sold that business. And with the business, I wasn't really thinking. And, my name was the brand name. And the guy, when he bought the business, he kind of got my name as well. So when I started my dating company, which has now become this full force kind of success training company for men and women, we needed a new name. We couldn't use that one. We took it.
Awesome. Well, I love that story. So your business became so successful that you even sort of lost your birth name, had to make a new name. But I mean, totally awesome because even Tony Robbins is not his birth name. So I mean, we do what we got to do. So I read your book this morning, great stuff. And so I'm really curious about sort of what do you have for us today and what's on your mind lately?
That's a great question. So one thing that is really actually on my mind is this is cool. Most of the interviews we do, it's very, it's formulaic. I appreciate this because this is fresh. Is one thing I don't even think I talked about enough in the book that I'm kind of regretting now, which is funny, but is this idea of high status people. There's a certain mindset. It's manifested in their actions and their decisions and their communications, but it's a certain mindset they have that low status people don't. And it's this idea of, I guess you could call it carefreeness, you could call it indifference, you could call it nonchalance, you could call it non-neediness. It's the difference between, if you take two guys who are super ambitious, let's say they're both 35 years old, and one of them is just a total type A. He is persistent, he pursues, he is aggressive. If you don't get back to him, he will follow up and follow up and follow up, and he's like a bull in a china shop. Well, that guy will be semi-successful, but he's going to rub a lot of people the wrong way because to some people, he's coming off as tryhard or he's coming off as needy. And we know that repels people. That's a fundamental truth about human nature. But the other guy, he could be just as ambitious, just as, kind of like that can-do attitude. But if he operates with this certain level of, I want this thing so bad, but at the same time, I don't need it. I'm going to be happy with my life regardless of what happens. And when he has that mindset and it comes off in his actions and the things he says and the questions he asks, and it triggers something different in people. We've all been around those people who are just super magnetic, where it's almost like this person's so cool, but we can tell even if we weren't here, they don't need us. They have a great life going on for themselves, and that attracts us to them. And what is that? It's that sense of detachment, non-neediness, indifference.
Awesome, and this is I can really relate to a lot of this because I think that you mentioned in your book and stuff like that you had sort of some bumps in the road early on, and I think that it almost seems like a lot of us entrepreneurs have been that way, where we early on we kind of were not really that well equipped just for life in general, right? Destined to be another sort of zombie person. What do you call the sandwich brigade? Just the people that kind of just visit the same 5 areas in life every day and all that sort of stuff. And I think that I kind of had to sort of push myself out of my comfort zone to not be the sort of shy person, because I'm just a nerdy computer programmer person. And I kind of got to the point where I'm well, I can keep going on this path, or something can change and I can kind of be more of a marketer, a business owner, the kind of person on camera. And I think that in those first couple of years when I kind of just sort of was the bull in the china shop, and I thought that there were only two modes, right? Either Mr. Sheepish or Mr. super aggressive. And then at some point I realized oh well, there's this whole other dimension of you can be sort of there but relaxed, and as you said, like super like a machine and productive, but not desperate, not needing it, more like a Tony Stark or a William Shatner. So I really like the idea of like, well, like number one, we kind of need to be like a better person and like maybe more of what we are, but then that doesn't necessarily mean to be like the opposite of we are. Does it sort of make sense, or is that sort of along the right track there?
That's completely on the right track, and you're exactly right. A lot of people they I don't I wish I knew the name for the psychological bias that it is, but a lot of people will they think there's only A or B, and those are the only choices there are. And when you create an A or B dynamic, you make it really easy for yourself to make a fast decision without taking the cognitive strain, without taking the time to actually sit down and think about, are those the only two options? Is there is there a third door, a fourth door, a fifth door? Because now when you have all these options, you realize there's all these different ways you could go. Like, there's that book, like The Paradox of Choice, where when we have too many options, we actually get paralyzed and we can't make any decision. So the natural tendency for most people is to only see things in black and white. You're either a Democrat or a Republican. You either like the Celtics or the Lakers. Like, it has to be one or the other. And when you do that, it makes it really easy for you to avoid any kind of, again, cognitive strain or any kind of doubt, and you can just pick A or B. But the truth is, when we step through these doors, when we take a step back and we start really thinking about this stuff, we realize you don't just have to be, like you said, a bull in a china shop, or the super kind of nerdy, I'm on my computer 16 hours a day kind of guy. Like, we all have so many different parts and dimensions to our personality. And some of them we exercise on a daily basis, so they're strong. They're the ones that are already at the surface. If you program 16 hours a day, and that's like your form of communication, that's what you do, that's the kind of person you're going to be, right? You are what you do. But there's this whole other side to you that can be charismatic, that can be great at communicating with people, that can be super empathetic with people and can really bond with people. But if you're not practicing it, of course it's not going to be to the surface. So all you need to do really is just go in and figure out, what are those other parts of me that have just been lying dormant for so long? And how can I don't have to go full force the other side, but how can I just take baby steps to start exercising and practicing those sides of me? Do I, 3 minutes today in a conversation, do I really try my best to kind of lower the volume on my own mental dialogue, so when someone's talking to me, I can just be fully present with them? Because when you're present with someone, then you can actually feel what they're feeling, because you don't have your internal dialogue creating all of this distraction. And when you can feel them that way, all of a sudden you're practicing empathy. Oh my God, like, it's such a crazy concept, such a thing that really doesn't exist in our culture much anymore. But that's really what it comes down to. And it's realizing that you don't have to be the bull in the china shop, and you don't have to be the super passive kind of person who just sits and is the wallflower all day. We're 360 degrees. There's all different areas of ourselves that we can be. Like we all have different people. Like, we all have friends where we have a friend where we talk about Star Wars with, because we both love Star Wars and we get super geeky when we hang out. And then we have the other friend who, that's the guy we go out with, and we go out and we just make stupid jokes and we drink beer and we have a good time. And we have these different sides of our personalities, and it's, a lot of times it depends on who you're with and who you're hanging out with recently that can bring it to the surface. So really, it's just about becoming aware of these things, so you don't have to rely on a friend to bring out that side of your personality, but being like, who do I want to be? Who do I want to be more like? And what steps do I need to take to start building that muscle within me?
And I love that building the muscle. And your book is full of just sort of all these exercises to be more present in the moment and to find those qualities and to be more what you are. And I kind of have to admit that, like, I think I saw you a few months ago on a Facebook live stream just for a second, and I was like, oh great, who's this dude with like the shaved sides of his head? And then when I started reading your book on a walk this morning, and I saw the table of contents, and I was like, oh great, what's all this like pickup artist sort of stuff? But then as I started to go into it, I sort of realized that like it's a lot of this just sort of seems like it's to kind of uncover more of like who you are and express more of who you are. And like you said, they're like, we're different things to different people, right? Like, you're different to a different person to like your mom versus your best friend, and all that sort of stuff. And there's all these different options. And like you mentioned in your book that in the TV show Suits, the guy says, well, what would you do if someone had a gun to your head? Well, exactly what he says. Well, no, I could get out of the way. I could push over the gun. I could get a bigger gun. So there's always these different kind of options. And I think that, even as you were describing this whole thing of like, knowing what path you want to be on and knowing where you want to be better. Have you ever seen that movie Click with Adam Sandler?
Yes, I have.
And like, I mean, I hate to admit that I've seen it. I didn't think much of it, but just that whole idea of like, kind of so many people are just like living life with the fast forward button on, and there's like, he kind of gets his life going a certain way and just accidentally hits the fast forward button. And next thing you know, he's just where he doesn't want to be because he kept on sort of going through the motions. And I think that I always worry about sort of like backsliding into that sort of territory, or I worry like I'm not sort of doing enough. And I've noticed that like when sometimes I'll look at like pictures of like gatherings or conferences, and sometimes there'll be like really awesome like body language, and everyone looks like sort of a winner or a player, but not a jerk. And then other sort of pictures I see on Facebook and things like that are just like everyone just sort of seems like off, right? Everyone sort of seems like kind of maybe slouched over or not really like quite a winner. And so I'm really curious about your thoughts on that. And I want to make sure that everyone's caught up as far as this idea of like high status and low status. So can you kind of like explain that and maybe tell us like what we can do to be high status?
Absolutely. So, just to start with what you were talking about, that was a perfect example. When you look at two pictures, two conferences, and one side it looks like the place to be, and the other side it looks like the place to not be. Like I never want to go there. And we don't. It's not like we sit down and do a Ben Franklin pros and cons checklist. It's in 3 seconds or less. We know instantly which seems like the party and which seems like the place you don't want to go. So how does that happen? How does that work? Body language is huge, like you alluded to, and there's 12 signals of higher status. And I'm going to give you just a quick story that is the kind of like the extreme example that can, I think, paint the picture of what high status really truly is. And I know Craig Valentine is our mutual friend, and he introduced us here, and this is his absolute favorite story that I've ever told in my life. So there's the build up to it. Anyways, a few years ago, I was living in Santa Monica, right near the water, right near the promenade. It's a beautiful area, and I'm in my early 20s. I'm going out every night. I'm this big dating coach guy, and I go out one night to this hotel called the Viceroy in Venice, and it's this really cool hotel. It's kind of very trendy. They, fire pits and wine and all kinds of well-dressed and good-looking people there. And when I go out, at this point in my life, I'm not there just like relax and have a good time. Like I go out because I'm studying human behavior. I'm studying male female dynamics, and where in the world can you get a better study on that than a hotel lounge bar, right? So I'm sitting there and I'm watching this one guy bounce around from table to table, and he is just the most extroverted, jovial guy. He's well dressed, he's good looking, he's groomed. People are responding well to him. It seemed like he knew everybody there. But in the corner of this bar, there's these three women, the most attractive women there. They're done up to the nines, and they all have what I call closed body language. So what I used to teach my clients is when you go into a bar or anywhere, if you want to go talk to someone you don't know, before you approach, ask yourself, is this person open or closed? And you'll know right away subconsciously. Open means, their legs are actually facing toward the rest of the room. They're not just facing the person they're with. Their head swivels a little bit. They're looking around. They're giving opportunities to make eye contact with them. They've open body language, right? And if it's a girls' night out, a lot of times you'll see girls will just be sitting there and they will not look at anyone. That's like there's this force field around them. They don't want anyone to approach because they've closed body language. It's a girls' night out. They just want to, for 2 hours, have a glass of wine and talk about nothing and everything. So that's what these three girls were doing. Completely closed body language. The force field is around them. I'm like, there's no way this guy's going to penetrate that and get in there and talk to them. And I see him takes his march to the corner, and I'm watching. I'm like getting ready to see what happens here. And he approaches and he tries. I'm listening. He tries every verbal tactic that I've ever heard. Everything he tries, nothing gets in. Nothing gets through. A couple minutes later, his head is in his chest now, and he just walks away slowly, dejected. And I'm like, that's it's like good for him. I admire his courage. Good for him. Like you win some, you lose some. 2 minutes later, George Clooney walks into this hotel. And when you see George Clooney, it's my first time ever seeing him in person, he doesn't really walk, he floats. There is like an aura, like a halo around him, like gold sparkles and unicorns. It's just like incredible. And he walks in, and there's this energy, this magnetism about him. He's dressed well, he looks well, and he walks right up to these same three girls. And I'm like, this is fascinating. What is going to happen here? And he walks up, and literally he gets within 5 feet. He doesn't even have to say anything, and the force field drops. All their body language opens right up to him. It's like Moses parting the Red Sea. And he walks in, and they are just ecstatic to talk to him. One girl is like, please sit down, take my seat. George, can I get you a glass of wine? They're just whatever he wants, right? And that right there is what it means to be high status versus someone who's not high status. When you are high status, doors just open for you. People are receptive to you. You know, it's that person who is just like, you look at them and you're like, everything, like they're a magnet. They're a magnet for good things. They're a magnet for opportunities. They're a magnet for deals. They don't have to work as hard or try as hard, yet everything seems to go their way. People respect them. People reach out to them. People come to them. They don't come to other people. They have the life that we all want. And a lot of people would say, well, George Clooney's famous. That's why that worked. And the truth is, it's not, right? A lot of people don't know. George Clooney, for 20 years before he was on that show, ER, he was going to audition in Hollywood. And he got rejected and rejected and rejected for almost 20 years. He kept working. He didn't get on ER until he was in his mid-30s. So he spent most of his life just getting rejected. And one day he realized, he goes, you know what? Everyone who goes to these auditions, I do the exact same thing that they do. They go in there and they try and impress the directors. They try and impress the producers. They're approval seeking. They're they come off very low status. And he goes, I've been doing this low status thing. It's not working for me. Let me try something different. Instead of me going in there trying to impress them, why don't I find out what they're looking for and kind of make them impress me? So when I ask them what they're looking for in a character and they say they're looking for X, I come back and I say, well, that sounds good, but why don't you want more? Why don't you want X and Y and Z? Wouldn't that even be better? So he's challenging them. And then he's finding out what they want. He's building rapport with them. So then he can, of course, project exactly the answer they just gave him when he auditioned. And the minute he flipped that switch, his career took off. And now he's Danny Ocean. He's, the world's sexiest man 86,000 times. And it all comes from that one switch. And it doesn't take a lot of time, right? We can become high status in an instant. When you read the book, you see the exercises. It's not like literally, I have had clients where everything is going wrong for them in a social situation. And I just move their leg further apart and I stiffen up their shoulders and I do a couple things with their head. I give them high status body language. And in 5 seconds, the whole night changes. People go from ignoring them, not being interested in them, to I'm so interested in you. Who are you? Where are you from? Tell me more. It's like they have all the power now. And it didn't take long. You didn't have to do a bunch of affirmations or a bunch of work on your inner game or anything like that, or your mindset. We just moved your leg a few feet, and a couple things to your body language, and everything changes. So obviously I get pretty passionate about high status. I hope, Robert, that kind of painted that picture for you guys.
Yeah, it does, and I think that I'm glad that the conversation is sort of going into that area because people might be listening and asking, well, we're talking about entrepreneurship. Why are these people talking about body language? And sort of what I got from maybe like the first third or so of that book is that a lot of people think, well, you need to change your thinking and then change your body, but it sounds like your logic is, well, change your body language, change your posture and all that stuff, and then that will sort of reflect back inward on you, and that will make you more confident, and then it'll also at the same time sort of project outward, and then other people will be sort of more receptive to you, and you won't be like the same sort of cookie cutter person everyone else is sort of drifting through life, being desperate, trying to please everyone. And so it sounds like it's just like a win-win in all these ways, and it sounds like the easy low-hanging fruit is just to make these sort of different adjustments in like your openness and your walk and all that kind of stuff. Is that about right?
That's exactly right. We have a quote in there that's really important to me, and it's basically that it's much easier to act your way into a new way of thinking than to think your way into a new way of acting. We all know so many people who, and I love Tony Robbins, but who go to these events and all the other, mindset people out there with the affirmations and the Napoleon Hill auto-suggestions and all this mental really masturbation that they just go through, and nothing actually changes in their reality. I know so many people who are like, I'm living I used to live in Venice, right, which is like the most granola place you can probably get on the planet at this point in terms of abundant minded training and different workshops and yoga. And I do yoga myself. I'm not calling it out, but like there's a certain mindset that comes about those people where they'd be like, I'm living the most abundant life. Life is abundant. Wealth just flows to me. And they have all the right beliefs going on in their brain, but they still live in a 300 square foot apartment with 3 roommates and they can't afford dinner. So you can think your way all day long that the world is abundant and money's attracted to you. But unless you're acting like the person who money is already attracted to, it's not coming to you, right? Success is behavioral. It's not mental. And I think that's the big thing that kind of separates what we talk about in higher status and what I do with my coaching than what's been out there. And what I love about it is it works. Like we have more than 10,000 success stories in our database at this point. based on this, where guys and girls for years are trying the Tony Robbins way and it didn't work. And they come here and 3 days later, they're like, dude, what the hell? Like everything I wanted to get, I just got it in 3 days. And the past 3 years were like a total waste. And I'm like, don't be mad about the last 3 years. Like you had to go through that to get here. Let's just, we'll put a positive spin on it. But that's exactly right, Robert.
And so, I mean, why do you think people get stuck in that? Is it like a matter of like it's easy to kind of get hung up on the facts and figures, or it's sort of a quick fix to feel good? And I mean, because like I know a lot of people like that who they know all the quotes, right? They know all the quotes, they know all the books, they've been to all the
Mm-hmm.
seminars, but then there's sort of that disconnect, that cognitive dissonance or whatever, where like if you say something, they'll be like, oh yeah, I know that from that course, or I know that quote, but then I'm like thinking, well, why don't you live it? Or like you said, like they'll talk about living an abundant lifestyle, but then they're miserable, they're living in like just a piece of crap place to live, or they'll say that they're so nice and generous, but then they're not asking any questions about me, they're all about themselves. So I mean,
Mm-hmm.
like why do you think people get stuck in that sort of rut, and what's the way out?
Well, it's a great question, and I wish I knew the exact answer to it. My inference, my guess on it, because I've seen all the same people who know all the same quotes and everything, is that it's just so much easier for us to stay in our comfort zone, our little bubble, and take out our little journal and write our little affirmations and think that the universe is going to take care of the rest. Right. I was at a workshop about 6 months ago in San Diego, and next to me, we were doing this kind of group exercise, and next to me was this girl. She was incredibly bright, intelligent, successful hypnotherapist from Detroit, and we're talking. And I'm like, so what's your goal for this year? Like, what's your big goal? And she tells me that she wants to triple the revenue of her business and help these professional athletes, and that's like her goal. And I'm like, great. What are you doing to achieve that? And her answer, this is a grown adult, intelligent and successful. And her answer is, well, I put it out into the universe, so I'm not worried about it. And that's it. How much, like I wish it was so easy. How easy is that? I just have to put it out to the universe and it's going to take care of it. Like Santa Claus is just going to come down my chimney and give me what I want. This is amazing. Right. And if it only worked that way. So it's easy. It's so easy for people to avoid taking new actions, moving in new directions, changing their behaviors, which are just patterns of movement. That's all they are. It's so much easier, though, instead of doing all that, to just write it down or say an affirmation, right? Or read a little, watch The Secret and then everything. Like, it's just so much easier to do that way. And I empathize with those people because there's a part of me that sometimes I'm just like, man, I wish it was just that easy, right? But it's not. Again, success is behavioral. It's about the actions you take. It's not about the thoughts that you have.
Awesome, and it's funny that you mention all that stuff in The Secret because, like, I mean, I haven't thought about The Secret in maybe like I don't know 8 or 9 years, and then like maybe like a week ago, me and my girlfriend were hanging out, and I was just sort of explaining this, and I don't even know how it came up, but I was sort of explaining this idea of The Secret, and I was trying to say it with a straight face because I sort of get the idea of like put out the stuff that you want, but then take the actions. But like I've definitely seen people sort of use that whole idea of like the secret or manifesting or whatever as saying I'm just going to think it and not do anything and it'll just come to me. And I'm thinking, well, what sort of logic is that?
Mm-hmm.
And so just sort of seeing, hearing about your story and like sort of seeing about like people who've made it, and we've all had our ups and downs, and I've had my ups and downs too, and it sort of seems like almost like early success is a disadvantage, right? And like having those bumps in the road early on kind of like toughens us up or like kind of points us in the direction that we need to be. And if we hadn't had whatever those crises or those scares or whatever, we wouldn't have so it have those behaviors. And I don't really know when way of thinking changed for me, and by way of thinking I mean like sort of that entrepreneur, like problem solver, like I'm going to go out and do it. If I have a roadblock, I'm going to solve that problem. If something's not right in my life, if my health is bad or if my mindset is bad, I'm going to, instead of just like waiting for it to happen, I'm going to go out and try different things and see what works instead of just like learning all the memorizations. And so there's sort of that part of it, right? There's like the entrepreneur problem solver part of it, and then there's also you kind of you mentioned like sort of the George Clooney carefree people will come to me. And so how do those two ideas sort of interrelate, like the carefreeness versus the get up and go get it done part of it?
Exactly, right. And that's the whole paradox of it. That's why I love it. That's why it's still a challenge even for me today, because you absolutely need both of those things to succeed at the highest level. And when I say succeed, I don't just mean making money. I mean in terms of having the relationships you want, having the connections you want, being fulfilled, being happy. Like I am happy, 24 hours a day now, and that's not like, oh, I'm special, or I take a lot of Xanax or Prozac, something like that. Like it's simply a matter of having built up those two qualities you just mentioned. And again, it is that paradox. And my mindset about it is really like whatever I'm working on in this moment is the most important thing in the world. It is the only thing in the world right now. But at the same time, it doesn't mean anything in the long run, right? The sun is going to blow up and we're all going to die. And that's just the truth at some point. And this is the kind of thing that like no one ever wants to talk about, right? Like even on TV and movies now, they barely show someone being killed now. Like if it's like an action thriller and people are dying, like they won't even show it anymore. They want to hide the truth about life from people so much that they can't even put it on the screen anymore. And I think they're doing a huge disservice to people. I think if more people realize that, holy shit, my time actually is limited. Holy shit, I am actually running out of runway. I need to live with a sense of urgency here. Then things would change, right? Like we all know, like I'm sure you've had times where you're working on a project, and because the deadline is 3 weeks away, you kind of coast and you coast and you coast, and then when there's 3 hours left and the deadline is right there, you turn it up in full gear. Well, how much further along would someone be if they lived in that full gear? And that's what I challenge myself to do every day. That's what I challenge my clients to do, while again at the same time never forgetting like this doesn't mean anything in the long run. And when you remember that, at the same time, you kind of you have this magnetism about you, because like people are like, how is this person so hardworking and so like ambitious and motivated, but at the same time water just like slides off them. They're just so calm and cool and collected and carefree. And that's the trick to life. You can be that person. You will have no problem getting the jobs you want, the deals you want, the dates you want, whatever.
And this is great stuff because I'm making all these sort of connections in what you're saying, because it's like we said earlier, like you're down different modes with different people. So instead of us being sort of like that one note cardboard character, like know when to have that focus, know when to relax. And that reminds me of like maybe like a week or two ago, I saw there was some interview with, I think it was like Larry King and Neil deGrasse Tyson, and they were talking to each other about death, about like, well, are we, reborn, or is there a heaven or an afterlife or stuff like that? And Neil deGrasse Tyson was just like, well, I believe, like, I don't remember before I was born, so I don't think I'll have consciousness after I'm dead. And so that kind of puts a time limit on things, and I could die in like a day or a year. And like, Steve Jobs has that saying of like, knowing I'll be dead soon is the most important tool. Or there's that whole saying of like,
Mm-hmm.
where can you find the most money in the world? In the graveyard. And so I mean, I know that we're kind of like, rattling off the quotes and stuff like that, but those are all sort of things that sort of that could help me sort of continue on without getting lost in all the academia of it. So I mean, you have all your exercises and stuff in your book. Like, do you have any sort of like specific, like, easy, quick things people listening and watching can do today, or things they can do like to get that focus and get that certainty in their business, like, really quickly?
Yeah, so I don't know why I picked this one off the top of my head, but I'm gonna rock with it here. Is one of the high status signals is the high status walk. And what people don't realize is first impressions are huge. There's something researchers call belief perseverance, whereas once we make a first impression of someone, we don't go back and reevaluate that impression we made of them on the second and third and fourth time that we're hanging out with them. We still operate on that first impression. That belief perseveres. We never go back and change it. Like if someone walks up to us and we're like, this is like the most depressed person we've ever seen just by judging them. If we hang out with them a second time and they're happy and energetic and perky, we won't go, oh, I was wrong, they're actually a happy person. We'll just go, oh, this is a depressed person who happens to be happy today, but they're still a depressed person. The first impression is what perseveres. Well, when is the first impression made? Most people think it's when you shake their hand, when you get introduced, but no. The truth is those first impressions are made when we see the person and we see them walking towards us, or us walking towards them. So the first impression is almost based entirely on how you walk. And I always ask my clients, I'm like, so I'm curious, like how do you know to walk the way that you walk? And they're like, well, I don't know. It's just my natural way of walking. Well, where'd you learn that? I don't know. It's just the same one I've been using since I got up off all fours. This was the walk. I went with it, right? 2 years old. I was like, screw it. Well, you know, there were things I was doing when I was 6 years old that were helpful then that aren't helpful now. I got rid of them. Why are you still using the same walk you used at 6 that you use today? It's not helping you. It's actually hurting you today. Let's tweak the way that you walk. Let's change some stuff up. Let's change people's first impression of you. So instead of them, getting the same impression you've been getting, let's get it so they're like, who is this person? This person is confident and charismatic. He seems to be going places, or she does. Like, who, let's get that first impression. And it's really easy with the high status walk. So all I would recommend you do is, if you're a guy, pick out who your favorite male movie character is of all time. Okay. And by the way, big movie stars and celebrities and things like that, the characters they play on the screen are great models for us to model on high status, because these are people who, they train their entire lives. So if it's a strong character, they train their entire lives to present the highest status person that they possibly can. So it's like, thank you for doing the work. You've cut all this work out for me. I know exactly who to copy here. So pick out your favorite strong male movie character. If you're a woman, pick out your favorite strong female movie character, and just find a clip of them on YouTube. And here's all you're going to do. You're going to go back. It's take about 3 minutes, about 3 to 6 minutes. You're going to watch 30 to 60 seconds of them in the movie, and just watch how they stand. Watch how they walk. Just let it get fresh in your brain. And then pause the clip, and then just go walk around your house or apartment, walking the way, not that you walk, but modeling the way that they walk. And then come back and do another minute of watching them, then another minute of walk, then another minute watching them, then one final time walking around the house or apartment just like them. And you will feel different. Someday, like part of you will be like, this is super weird. I'm walking in circles around my house. But there'll be another part of you that's like, holy crap, I didn't realize it. I've been walking so low status. I've been walking in such a slouched way before. I feel better. I feel different walking like this person. In fact, a lot of times we know from NLP, when you model someone on a physical level, a lot of their mindsets and beliefs kind of come along with it. So if I start walking like George Clooney, my brain will actually start thinking a little bit like George Clooney and seeing the world like George Clooney, right? If you're a single guy and you're looking to meet women, which mindset is going to be better? The one that, the mainstream media tries to thrust upon you, or George Clooney's mindset, right?
George Clooney.
I'd rather have George's mindset if that's my goal. So there's all these secondary gains and benefits that we get from this. But just by doing this a couple times for a few days, you'll notice that the way you walk is going to change automatically. You don't have to think about it. You'll be walking like that person you really admire on the big screen, and people around you are going to start noticing and responding differently to you.
And I've seen, I noticed a lot of that in your book, just that the whole idea of like the majority of communication is nonverbal, and that a lot of us only focus on our speaking, but then the sort of the way we carry ourselves, the way we stand, the way eye contact is a big thing, and all that sort of stuff. And you mention things like how you first started getting into like pickup artist sort of stuff, and you first learned like the step by step, the can stuff, and that kind of got you a little further on the way. And am I kind of correct to assume that it's sort of similar in this walk thing, that like at first you're sort of modeling or copying George Clooney or Tony Stark or whoever, and then after just a few repetitions, it'll become automatic? And am I sort of getting that right? And that the exercises, like some of this walk stuff, like it's only temporary. It's like a bridge over troubled water, and then you'll sort of absorb it.
Exactly. It's like someone who's learning how to shoot a basketball, right? The first few times it's really weird, and then you do it a few more times, and before you know it, you got the hang of it. Fortunately, it happens a lot faster when it comes to our behavior, because when it comes to learning new skills, which is all we're doing here, repetition and frequency are two of the biggest predictors of how fast you're going to learn that skill. Well, if you're learning to shoot a basketball, if you're not there 8 hours a day, then you're not going to get as many reps, and it's going to take more time. But how often do we walk? Fantastic, right? We get all these opportunities all day long to get the reps in. So it only takes a couple of days, and before you know it, the switch has been made. And what I teach my clients, because a lot of them will come to me and be like, well, Jason, it sounds great, but I kind of feel like I don't want to be George Clooney. I want to be myself. Like, I want to be me. And the thing is, you still are you. You're not going to become George Clooney. My apologies to some of you out there, but you're going to take the best qualities of what he does, and they're just going to become a small part of you. And it's just going to boost your status up and your reputation and your power and charisma up as a result of that. And the final thing I always say is, all we're doing is we're just practicing until it becomes natural, right? And again, it only takes just a couple of days.
Awesome. Practice it becomes natural, and practice until it becomes natural. And so I don't want to keep you for too long here, but as we're sort of winding down, one thing that I come across with a lot of people is they're afraid to kind of put their name and their voice out there. And I try to tell them that, like, even me, I was like super shy and had to overcome that. And people are just, it seems like they're afraid to run webinars and podcasts and do the YouTube vlogging and the Facebook Live and stuff like that. And so do you have any advice for people out there, someone who's just like, is like super stubborn, super set in their ways, they don't want their voice out there, they don't want to be in camera? I mean, is there like a any sort of like advice that has helped you, or that you tell people to kind of get that confidence up and to kind of get up and go and get themselves out there?
I'm so glad you asked this question because the answer is yes, I do.
Awesome.
As we talked about here, obviously, I'm a big believer, and the proof is everywhere around me that it's if you want to make these changes, it has to be behavioral. It can't be mental. So people because really what we're talking about here is they're worried about what other people think. That's the whole problem. That's the whole barrier. That's the whole obstacle. You care too much what other people think, and you project into the future all these weird and mean and twisted things they're going to say about you. And literally the image of that in your mind is what's blocking you and what stops you. And if you didn't worry about that, then you'd be able to take the actions you need. So it's like Einstein said, right? Like the problem that we can't solve the problem at the same level that it was created, right? So if you're having a thinking problem, meaning you're worried about what other people think, you're not going to think your way out of it. That's the same level. We need to go to a different level to solve that problem. So what I do, and this is going to be a challenge. I would love it if some of your listeners actually did this and hit me back on like Instagram or something to tell me about it, because this works, but it's going to seem out there to some people. All right. So what I did when I was 23 years old, because I used to be super shy. I was so shy. I was so reserved. I was afraid to talk to any stranger, let alone a girl, is I realized this intuitively. So instead of like, oh, I need to do a bunch of work on my beliefs and write them down a bunch of times, I need to do something in the real world. I have to take some action. So what I did living in Santa Monica was I wrote down on a piece of paper 5 different things that were super weird. They weren't going to hurt anybody, but they were going to put myself in very weird, awkward, scary social situations. And I was going to have to sit there and withstand the social pressure, because what your brain needs is evidence. It needs evidence to see that you can do this thing and you're not going to die and everything's still okay. When your brain gets that, it's like the lights go on. It's over. So 2 of the things I did. One of them was I went into a nail salon right on Main Street in Santa Monica, busy nail salon. There's 20 women in a U shape. They're all getting their pedicures there. And I just walk in. I don't say a word to anyone. I tip my hat, and then I get down on the floor in the middle of this nail salon, and I bang out 30 push-ups. And, as I'm doing it, push up 15, 16, 17, I look up to see like because at first I'm like, I don't even want to look up what are these women thinking. And I look up, and there's like, it was amazing because there's like 4 women who are looking at me with like these faces of like, what the hell is going on right now? But 80% of the room didn't even notice. And I wasn't like hidden. I am in the center of this circle, right? If this is like a circus, I am the elephant. I am right there. And no one even noticed. They would look, and then they'd go back to like getting their nails done or reading their phone. And at that point, I realized like, holy crap, people are so into their own worlds and into themselves and into their phones today. They don't care, and they definitely don't notice. So that was the first one, right? So then I walk out and I get this high, and I'm feeling good, and I'm like, God, this is great. I'm social. I'm talking to everyone. I don't care. I'm in the zone. I'm in that flow state. So as I'm walking with my buddy, because he was doing it with me, we see this group of girls, maybe 5, 6 girls, all in their 20s, and it's like getting laid out, and they probably had a couple of drinks. And one of the things on my list was I had to propose to somebody as a joke. So I'm like, I got to do it, right? So I just dart across the street. I find the first girl. I get down on bended knee, and I hold her hand, and I look at her, and I'm like, listen, I want you to know, like, the last 2 years of our lives have been amazing. I'm sorry about what happened with your sister in Las Vegas. I swear it didn't mean anything. Let's put that behind us. Will you marry me? And I say this, and she's like gone from like laughing to angry to like smiling. Her friends are all giggling. Her friends are all like, do it. She's like, I will. I'll marry you. So we jump up. I give her a big hug, and I spin her around, and then I go, all right, wife, I'll see you later. And I walk away, right? But there was a series of things that I did. And from that point on, I mean, literally that was 5 years ago now. Never has really worried, like been caring about what other people think, hasn't been an issue anymore. And simply because my brain has seen the evidence that you can do things you don't think you can do. You can do things that you think other people will think are weird or strange or awkward, yet they won't even notice and they won't even care, and you're still going to be just fine. So my challenge for anyone listening here who wants to gain this power too is what we do now is I don't have clients go do push-ups in nail salons, because it turns out nail salons don't like that very much. But what I do is I have them go into a store, usually a clothing store, and I have them order food just to see what the other person says, right? So you go into American Apparel and you try and order, chicken fried rice and just see what happens. And then when they tell you they don't have it, act shocked. You don't have chicken fried? What do you mean? I had it here last week. Are you sure? Can you check the back? Right? And you start getting this back and forth, and it's funny. It's kind of a banter. It's a playful thing. But the minute you're done, you're changed forever, because you have discovered something very few people ever will, which is that most people are all in their heads all day long. It's something called the spotlight effect, if you want to use the researcher's term. But it means that everyone is so focused on themselves. Like, how much do you think about yourself during the day versus other people? We think about ourselves all the time. And because of that, they're not thinking about you. Like, even if they call you a name, they make a comment on Facebook, 20 seconds later, they've already forgotten what they said, right? So I think hopefully what I just shared can help some of the people out there dealing with this, because I know how strangling it can be on the actions you need to take and you're not taking them. And I really, really hope that some of you will actually take action on what I just said, so you can get the same evidence and get the same power.
And that's super great advice. And I hope that you guys listening, you do that. You make that list of just 5 silly things to go out there to get that evidence so that it relates to other stuff. And I can definitely relate to that. Of like, in the past, I was kind of doing those little things. I'm only realizing just now that, like, doing even just those quick little sort of funny, silly sort of pattern interrupt kind of things, it boosted my confidence, and that still, like, lasted years later. And I'm thinking about things like, having more eye contact, like when I was at a hotel, an event, when I was at a bar, like learning the name of the bartender, or if it's like, at the checkout line at Target, like if they have the name tag, like calling them by their name, or when someone says like, how's your day going, instead of saying good, saying something like super different because they're not used to it. Or like, when you used to hand your credit card to the person before there was all the machines, I'd kind of like pull it back for a second, and all those sort of fun things. And I think that, thinking back to it now, sort of like, connecting the dots, it was almost like the things that I was super worried about, like you said, like, not only did they not matter, but once I did them, it was like embarrass the person I was talking to, not me, right? Like,
Mm-hmm.
if I did something silly, I was kind of the goofball, I was relaxed, and the other person sort of got flustered. And I think that advice, I think that's very, very timely advice, especially in this day and age, because, as you said, people are on their phones so much and just caught in these patterns, caught in these cycles. And by breaking them out of these cycles, you can kind of like, you feel like a better person, and you help them. And just like the message that I heard over and over in your higher status book is that, like, sort of a rising tide lifts all boats, right? Like, it's not a matter
Mm-hmm.
of like shitting on someone else to make you better. It's like, by you being better, you make everyone else better, and then they make you better, and it's more of like an abundance thing instead of a scarcity thing. So I think that this is all really great advice. I hope that people do this, and then come back and reach out to you on Instagram, as you said, and tell you about the results. And so I know that we went, way over time, but I had a lot of fun, and I want to make sure that everyone knows where to track you down, where to find you, where to get all your good stuff. So if they liked our conversation today, Mr. Jason Capital, where should they go? And yeah, where should they go right now? Not just later on, but right this instant. What's the website or websites they should go to find out more about you and what you do?
Absolutely. So go to highstatusbook.com. It's just highstatusbook.com. And what you're going to find is the book that Robert's been talking about here. We're actually doing a special promotion right now where we're giving away copies of the book for free. So you just help us out with the shipping and handling. You'll enter in your information there. But the book is free. We already bought it for you. And get the book, right? And when you get the book, I usually don't share this publicly, but when you get the book, there's like 10 other video bonuses that we give you. So it's really kind of a sweet deal. Simply because we didn't get to it here, but I am truly like on a mission. I've dedicated my whole life, every inch of my house and everything that I do with my business is based on, I want to make 100 million people higher status before I die. That's kind of my goal. So that's kind of why we're giving away the book for free. It's kind of the first domino to really start changing your life. So I really hope that anyone listening got a lot of value out of this. And if you did, go to the site, get the book, and I'm looking forward to working with you.
Cool. And if they go and get that book and become higher status, and you only have 99,999,000 to go, right?
Exactly.
So, and just one person at a time. Well, super great, and it was all great advice. Everyone should go right now to highstatusbook.com and claim that free book. And I just want to say, Mr. Jason, that a couple months ago, I was on a podcast interview with someone else, and they kind of gave me this little bit of a tip of like, well, this person likes to be on camera, even if it's not recorded, just to kind of like be out there and it's like step up her game as far as like the body language and get known more as a speaker. And that was just a kind of piece of advice that kind of heard, and it kind of rolled off me, and I sort of forgot about it. But sort of after picking up your book this morning and sort of getting that knowledge reinforced about sort of how important body language is, and being aware of our own body language, and just making those couple of tweaks, that way we're high status and not low status. I really taken that to heart, and the podcast interviews I've done today, I've put myself on camera. I normally don't do that, but that is going to be a permanent thing from now on. In the next few hundreds of podcast interviews I do, and then some, I'm going to be on camera from now on, just because I just got that sort of reminder, like I got it, enough time, just barely enough times to take it to heart of like, be aware of your body language, be on camera, be your best self, all that stuff. So I just wanted to let you know that you changed me already as well from reading your book. I'm going to be on camera from now on from this podcast, so that's sort of my way of getting outside my comfort zone and putting myself out there. So just want to let you know about that.
Robert, that is awesome. I love hearing that, man. And I think it's great. And I think the way you're attacking it is exactly the way that everyone else should. Meaning, there's this thing I know I should work on, and I know it's outside my comfort zone. So I'm gonna find a way to practice it all the time. Like you said, you got a few hundred podcasts, or who knows how many coming up. Maybe you're gonna have 99,999,000 podcasts coming up for yourself too, which would give you tons of opportunity to keep working on that body language. And like we said, man, uh, you're gonna get it. Like, I mean, just watching you here, your body language looks fine to me, but you're gonna keep getting better and better, and pretty soon it'll be great. And you'll be like, what's the next signal I can work on? And then what's the next one? And it's like you're building this Iron Man machine that's just unstoppable. And to me, that's what life's all about, right? Growth and contribution and progress, and just keep getting better and better and better at what we do.
Great stuff, and a great message. I mean, always do what you're afraid to do, and there's no do-overs in life, and you never know like how many days or years you have left. So why not take that leap and do that action? All of you guys listening, you know what that nagging thing is that you need to do and should be doing. So go ahead and do it right now, and just make those little steps, those small exercises. And Jason's book, High Status, will help you to do that. So go once again. That's highstatusbook.com. That's HIGHSTATUSBOOK.com, highstatusbook.com. Everyone go there right now. And I want to thank you, Jason, for stopping by and sharing your knowledge and having a lot of fun with us today.
Thanks so much, Robert. I had a great time.
Want to listen to more fantastic episodes of The Robert Plank Show? Subscribe to us at robertplank.com/iTunes and browse past episodes at Robert